Hey, welcome to A Push with Lennox. And that was a pretty dramatic opening. But I think it's warranted here because we're going to talk about something pretty dramatic today. And that's going to be the beginning of American history. And it all started with exploration, specifically Spanish exploration. Now, I know that there's already millions of people living in North, Central, and South America by the time the explorers get here. And the interactions between the Native Americans and the Europeans is going to be, let me say, not too good for the Native Americans. But the Europeans are coming, and I want to talk about why. Specifically in Europe, a lot of changes were occurring in the years about 1000, 1100, 1200 during that time. And it was due primarily to the Crusades. Europeans were going down into the area of the eastern and the southern part of the Mediterranean region, and they were fighting Muslims for control of the Holy Land. Well, while there, several effects are going to come into play that's going to lead to exploration into the rest of the world. The first thing we're going to talk about is how Europeans came into contact with people they had never knew existed before. And these new cultures they're going to find are more advanced than the Europeans. Also, they're going to start learning about these folks, and they're going to bring some of their ideas back into Europe. And not only are they bringing ideas back, but they're also bringing goods and commodities. Stuff like spices and fabric and silk and everything like that. And the more they bring into Europe, the more Europeans want. On top of that, while the Crusades are going on, you also have this age of Renaissance occurring. Ideas and art and music are starting to take hold in Europe. And this is also going to have an effect on exploration. Because number one, some of these new ideas brought new technology. And it's going to make travel for Europeans a lot easier. Now, I'm not talking travel like today, but I'm talking about inventions like the astrolabe or the compass, things that will help navigators get through the oceans and find new lands. Political thought is changing as well. You're going to see the growth of nation states, and that's when countries start to evolve, like England and France and Spain. Religiously, the church is going to be challenged. Martin Luther is going to spark the Protestant Reformation when folks start challenging the power of the church within society. You'll see new fields of thought like Lutheranism come up, and then Calvinism starts to rise during this time. This idea of predestination, which is going to play a key role in English colonization later on. So all of this is happening at once, and it's going to have a direct effect or almost a spark that leads to more exploration in the world. And it's not just Spain, it's also France, Dutch, English. All countries are looking to expand their empires and find new lands and find new goods and commodities that they can bring back to their countries. So what is the main motivation for exploration during this time? Simple, it's the 3 Gs: God, glory, and gold. I'm sure you've heard of that before. And I'm going to talk about each one specifically. Let's start first with that first G, God, religion. Now, religion plays a key role in exploration for all countries, but the Spanish and the French are looking to not only just spread Christianity, they're looking to convert anybody they can to the Christian faith. This is going to play a key, essential role in their interactions with Native Americans. They're going to send missionaries to the Southwest and to the Northeast in the form of monks and Jesuit priests. And their primary goal, really their only goal, is to convert the Native Americans. Now I need to pause here for a moment because I want to make it very clear. The Spanish and the French sought to convert the Native Americans. The English never did. Conversion of Native Americans was never a goal of English colonization. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't conversions. That doesn't mean that there weren't episodes of natives being introduced to the gospel. Just know that the English never intended to have conversion be a primary attribute of their colonization. But the Spanish, yes, and the French, absolutely. just not the English. The second G is glory. With the rise of nation states, you see the rise of a race for power. And the more land you have, the more power you have. And so countries are going to fund explorations to go out all over the world to gain control of land, all in the name of their nation state. Mercantilism is another key term that you're going to need to know, and that refers to the favorable balance of trade. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because that one fits under gold as well. And then, of course, when you look at these explorers and you look at these kings and queens throughout the world, they're looking for recognition. And they want to get money. It's always about the money. So let's talk about the gold. A lot of times in history, if you want answers, just follow the money. In this case, wealth was a driving factor behind exploration. I mentioned mercantilism previously, and I said it was a favorable balance of trade. More than that, mercantilism is a relationship between a country and her colonies. The colonies are put in place to bring raw materials to the mother country, which the mother country can then turn into manufactured goods. Once they have those manufactured goods, they can sell them either back to their colonies or throughout the world. Once they start that process, you're going to see the implementation of tariffs or taxes, another fundraising source for nation states. And then the building up of your gold and silver reserves is going to allow countries to finance other expeditions to find more colonies and also to finance their military because they're going to have to be able to protect their colonies that they're funding. So when we look at North America in 1763, you can see there's a number of countries who have interest in this area, in the Western Hemisphere. But this is 1763, and I want to go back to about 1492 because it was the Spanish who got here first. And this is the guy who brought him, Christopher Columbus, an Italian who went to the Spanish to fund his mission to the Americas. Now, Columbus, not very popular during his time. And why? 4 different voyages were funded for Columbus to find a water route to India. That's right. He wasn't trying to find a colonial region for Spain. He promised that he would be able to deliver a water route from Europe to the Middle East and back. I mentioned earlier that the land route between Asia and Europe was very treacherous and difficult to travel. So a lot of these countries are looking for a water route in order to get their goods from one side of Asia back to Europe. And Columbus promised that to the Spanish. 4 trips he made, 4 trips he failed. Now, just real quickly, sidebar here, Columbus never thought the world was flat. We knew the world was round. He also wasn't surprised when he came across the North American continent. We knew it was there. What we might not have known was how large it was. And you can tell by that mission from 1502 to 1504 that he was looking for a waterway to get through what we consider Central America. No one had built the Panama Canal yet, and I guess he didn't know. Now, like I said, Columbus was not very popular due to his failure of finding a Northwest Passage or a water route to India. And to be honest, he's not that popular today as well, primarily due to the wake of destruction that was left in his path when he came to the Americas. Yet we credit him with discovering the United States or discovering America, when really that honor should go to Leif Erikson. The Vikings were here long before Columbus and the Spanish were. Instead of Columbus Day, we should have Leif Erikson Day. And like I said, not many people really like Columbus today. And a lot of it has to do with what happened to the Native Americans once the Europeans arrived. The Columbian Exchange is a permanent trade relationship between Europe and the Americas. And there's 3 key parts to it: food, animals, and germs. Now, when we talk about food, that's going to be crops like tomatoes and corn and sugar. And some of these are going to be introduced to Europe for the very first time. And there is going to be a lasting benefit from some of these crops coming over to Europe. including an improved lifestyle and a longer life in Europe. Animals are going to benefit the Native Americans. The Spanish are going to introduce the horse to North America. Prior to the Spanish arriving, there had never been a horse on American soil. And that's going to absolutely change the Native American way of living. But the one I want to talk about the most is the transfer of germs. Diseases are going to be introduced to both sides of the oceans, but it's going to be the natives who pay the price for this exchange. Here's just a small list of different diseases that are going to be introduced into the Native American community by the Europeans. And these diseases are going to be deadly because the Native Americans had never built up an immunity to any of these germs. And we're going to see disease being the number one killer of the Native Americans. And when I say number one, I'm talking 85% at least of the Native American population is going to die due to disease. Now, some diseases are also going to be introduced over in Europe, but they're not going to have the same lasting effect like it does in North America. The one disease everyone normally keys in on is the idea of syphilis being introduced to Europe. So go ahead, take your chuckle break now. Syphilis. Okay, so that's it. That's your introduction to Spanish exploration of North America. When we come back, we're going to actually look at the Spanish colonial system and see how they start interacting with the Native Americans. Spoiler alert, it's not going to be good for the natives. But we'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time around. Bye-bye.